Welcome back. Well, we continue talking about security, but this time in Rivers State. And Dr. Austin Tam-George joins us next. He's the Commissioner for Information in Rivers State. Thank you for coming this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Well, some concerning news popping up in Rivers, especially after they held that security summit. We understand not long after that, there was another unfortunate incident, and some of the papers reporting killing of some political party chieftains. What's going on?
We have some security challenges in Rivers State, but I wouldn't characterize them as political in nature. We consider them as criminal activities. We cannot draw conclusions now because obviously investigations are still on. We got the report about the recent killings, and the government, has condemned those killings. The governor has directed immediately, he became aware of it, he directed security forces to move into the area and try to make sure they bring the situation under control. It's a difficult moment we are going through just across the country. Your previous guest here made it very clear that this is not, in fact, unique to Port Harcourt or Rivers State. We've found similar criminal activities in Ogun State, in Oyo State, here in Lagos. What we are doing is to constantly work with the security forces, work with all stakeholders, youth groups, community leaders, traditional authority, work with the. In fact, in Rivers State, the governor has done very well in terms of giving tremendous support to security forces. For instance, he was the first in this political dispensation to give over 60 security-fitted vehicles to the police. So this is an ongoing effort. It's not going to be an episodic intervention. It's going to be an ongoing effort, working closely with community heads to make sure that the perpetrators of these crimes are apprehended and brought to face justice.
What's the latest? What's the latest about the Onelga killing?
Well, the governor held a security summit in the area that brought all stakeholders together to say, look, we need to chart a way forward. Whatever the grievances might be, whether they are related to agitations over oil control, whether they are activities involving cult members, whether they are in fact related in some sense to political disagreements. What the government's attitude is that these are criminal activities. You can have disagreements concerning oil companies, but there are established lawful protocols for going about them. You may have disagreements over political preferences, but our electoral process doesn't allow violence. The laws do not allow violence as a way of expressing political difference. If these are in fact called groups, what we are doing is to make sure we inform the security forces to say, look, logically, where there is a disproportionate amount of criminality, we should have a disproportionate deployment of security forces in the area. But as you know, crime is something that is opportunistic. Anytime there is a security gap, criminals move in and try to take advantage of it. So it's not an episodic intervention the government is involved in. We are constantly working with security.
Has any arrest been made?
In this recent case, no. I understand, the police commissioner moved in yesterday night, and investigations are now actively on in the area.
It looks slow because I'm worried because when it started, when it broke, we haven't seen that kind of heinous crime committed in recent times. People's heads severed off their bodies, and not one, not two. It would seem as if we don't get to the bottom of this and no arrest is made, and we say in moving forward, then we're likely to get a repeat of such.
These are we understand, cult groups. In all our meetings, including executive council meetings, the governor has made it very clear that he considers that these are criminal activities.
Has it been confirmed that they are actually cult groups?
Well, they seem to have a common identity. They seem to be fighting for tough control. They want to control their own criminal territories. But, whatever the details are, we are not interested in those details. What we know is that these are criminal activities, and crime will have to be brought under control. and criminals will have to be brought to face justice. You see, the nature of these activities make it a little more difficult in Rivers State because of the difficult terrain, and because sometimes, you know, we have not had the consistency that you would expect in terms of the presence of security personnel in the state. We've had, you know, so many deployments and redeployments of police commissioners. I am not a security expert. I cannot now say categorically what informs those kind of regularity of deployment of police commissioners. But what seems to me logical is that when we have some longevity in terms of how long a police commissioner remains in office within a state, he gets to know the security architecture, he gets to know the topography of the area, he gets to form alliances with stakeholders in the state, he gets to meet the communities and, you know, get them involved in the security architecture he has built. But it takes time for all of these things to mature and take place. Now, if just at the point when this is about to happen, the police commissioner is removed and another person is brought, you know, everywhere in the world, crime is an opportunistic activity. When this kind of constant deployments and redeployments of police personnel and police commissioners happen, you know, you might think you're making security decisions or you're making political decisions. But the criminals don't see it that way. They just simply take advantage of these gaps and then, commit these crimes. So what we will suggest is, let us have some stability in terms of the presence of personnel, security personnel, so that there could be, some consistency in the way we are addressing these challenges.
Tam-George, while you might have that challenge of inconsistency in the leadership of security infrastructure there, the other side would be, what about the social side of re-engineering the system? How is that working out in Rivers? Because even if the leadership of the security machinery is not consistent, the people of Rivers State are consistent. So how about working with them?
You see, by law, the states do not have control over security forces. What happens is that, this police, the SSS, and even the military, they're ultimately answerable to the commander-in-chief and to the IG. But you see, you're correct. The point, yes, the point you're making
is not about controlling the security. I'm talking about social re-engineering.
You see, if I understand you correctly, what this would mean is a recognition that in the spectrum, in the security spectrum, there are all kinds of stakeholders, including community heads, including traditional rulers, including youth groups, women groups, all kinds. All these are stakeholders within the security spectrum, which is why, in addition to the planned security summit in the state, what the governor did just over a week ago was to go to this region, the Orashi region we call it, and he held a stakeholders meeting to say, look, although constitutionally and primarily the security of this area is that of the police and the security forces, every person, all stakeholders must play a role in securing this area. And so he held this conference. As you will understand, these things take time. And so everybody is on board. In fact, when this latest killing happened, he immediately, directed that there should be disproportionate amount of security in the area. It's something that we keep working on. It's an unfortunate development, and our sympathies with the families of the victims, but it's something we are on top of. In fact, the last we had a discussion, we are now planning to hold a security summit. We'll bring security experts from the Peace and Security Directorate of the African Union. We'll bring all stakeholders, including the president as keynote speaker. We want to hold a security summit at the state level so that every aspect of security will be recalibrated to see how we can improve the situation.
While you're planning the security summit, what's being done to educate the people of Rivers State as regards securing themselves and their neighbors?
What we've done is to make sure that people understand that this is not just the primary responsibility of government alone. Every person, has been made to understand that, look, if you see people who are, accumulating arms or keeping arms, when they are not supposed to keep arms, if you see anybody whose behavior is suspicious, if you just don't even, if you can't even reach the police, inform the traditional rulers, and they have hot lines that they can immediately reach the governor or to the security agencies. In fact, in one of our meetings with traditional rulers, the governor made it very clear that if there is peace in your area, much more than other areas, you will be incentivized. There will be additional cash bonus, so there are all kinds of things. But unfortunately, you see, majority of Rivers people are peaceful and they go about their normal businesses. But you see, criminals are constantly looking for how to plot new ways, and which is why our approach is a consistent, systematic approach, not an episodic one, a consistent one, in order to make sure we're on top of the
How
crisis.
about the robberies that go on? Because here we consistently harp on the fact that the nation needs to provide a national emergency number, 3-digit numbers. Do we have such thing in Rivers State such that they can report such cases?
In Rivers State, the situation is, there is this constant corporate and security alliance that has been formed. If you have a bank, if you have a finance house, if you have a business organization, make sure that you have a constant interface with the police and the security forces. What the police is doing in Rivers State, I think, is to increase their intelligence. Personnel that do not necessarily wear uniforms, such that they can infiltrate some criminal gangs to make sure they are present in corporate organizations in a way that you cannot visibly identify them because they don't wear uniforms. The nature of these things, of course, they also have their security hotlines. But you see, the nature of crime is that, as I keep saying, criminals are constantly opportunistic. They are looking for gaps. They are constantly looking for opportunities to take advantage of. So those in the security community are required to constantly, dynamize their procedures in order to make sure that the situation is kept under control. It's not an easy thing. In Chicago, for instance, in the U.S., people die more from gun violence than the soldiers Americans have lost in Afghanistan. So it's a constant problem everywhere in the world. Does this excuse the crime in Rivers State? It doesn't. But what we are saying is that this is a global and, in this context, a national problem, and we keep working at it.
The Rivers State, as the challenges may be, what about things like lighting up the state? I mean, Lagos State, for instance, our last guest talked about lighting up the Lagos environment in all areas of Lagos.
Yeah.
So because crime thrives in darkness.
Yes.
So what efforts is the government making in terms of infrastructure?
You see, this is a very important question. Since Governor Wike came into office, in terms of infrastructure, if you're talking about road construction, for instance, he's constructed over 100 kilometers of road across the spectrum of, he's literally reindustrializing the state. How does this relate to security? I'll tell you. One, if, people spend hours on the road, as I keep saying, criminals are opportunistic. They could organize, grab, hit and grab, attacks. So now movement is a lot freer.